We are at the Pigface booth here at PAX West 2025. I've heard some buzz about this game. Elliot was telling me about this game. I heard it from a couple other people. Who am I joined by today, first of all?
You're joined by Ethan. I sometimes go by Tito or Tito Loves You online, but my real name's Ethan. So,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So, Tito, Ethan.
It doesn't matter.
What is Pigface all about?
Pigface. It's a very grimy first-person shooter. It's about the character protagonist Exit, who is being blackmailed into carrying out wet work for this mysterious group that she doesn't know and the player doesn't know. And yeah, it's all about, someone described, a good friend of mine described it as a combat sandbox, and I think that really embodies what it is. You just go in and kind of use your tools however you want to solve objectives that are simple and straightforward, but it's up to you how you do it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about these tools and this toolbox that you have. Are we talking mainly about like weapons? Is there a lot of melee focus here? Like, what weapons are at your disposal, and how does that toolbox or arsenal expand as the game goes on?
So there's in the player apartment, which acts kind of like the hub, there's this laptop that you can open, and then you can go to this shop called Bubba's Supply, and you can buy all sorts of equipment there. You can get melee weapons, you can get Kevlar, you can get a grenade launcher, you can get landmines, all that sort of stuff. And then in between levels, you'll pick the level that you go to on the world map. And while you're going there, you are in the back of this van. And in that van, you can kind of cycle through all the stuff you've accumulated and bought and make your own loadout however you want. And one of my favorite things that you have is also these masks. It kind of works like Hotline Miami, where they like modify the game and give you certain things that you can and cannot do, or they just, are generally just a buff to your character in some sort of way. So one of the masks that I like is called the Armadillo mask, and it gives you twice as much explosive ammo and gives you 50% more like pushback force from explosions. So you can effectively rocket jump with the grenade launcher if you want, like go up vertically into some house or something like that. So yeah, so useful stuff like that.
Nice. Going back to the narrative and how it's kind of like this grimy first-person shooter, what was some of the inspiration behind this story, and how did you decide to kick off with it? What made you think this game needs to exist?
That's an interesting question. I think what made me realize that this game needs to exist is honestly because the game I was working on before bored me to tears. I was working on something and I realized like I would not pay money for this. I wouldn't really play this, honestly. And then I was like, what games do I like? And one of my favorite games of all time is Dishonored, because it's like, you're this cloaked assassin doing all these cool things, you have powers and shit like that. But I like the grounded, grungy nature of my game. I like the aesthetic of that, and I was like, why don't I do something where it's just that? It's kind of like a Dishonored style thing where you go in, you have to complete these objectives or kill people and do that. And that's kind of what inspired it there. And like another thing is like there's some movies that I've had inspiration from, like No Country for Old Men and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, mostly for the look and the color correction.
Yeah.
And like just grindhouse stuff like that. And then all that's accumulated to like just a game that I really want to play, So
yeah. When you were working on this game, what was maybe a unique design challenge, like something that a wall that you hit, and when you overcame it, you're like, okay, great, I finally got that kind of like tuned in. Even more interestingly, if it was something that you thought was going to be fairly easy and maybe it was more challenging than you expected.
Yeah, I think honestly, like there's so many of those that happen, because most of these things that you do as a game dev are unique design challenges. And honestly, on a broad scale, over the course of this game's development, like I'm a really new dev, and I'm super I'm in this little box of Unity programming specifically, because I've taught myself all of this. I didn't go to school for it or anything like that. But like over time, I've realized how player-centric you need to design things, because if you go into it trying to do something generic or with that lacks some intent, that lack of intent is felt. So something that I really am happy that I came to is that I tried to make a generic system to make entities either run away from you and hide behind things, or chase you based on an aggression system. So enemies will spawn either aggressive or defensive, blah, blah, blah. Initially when I was doing that, and I was doing this like procedurally with math, there were so many things that I ran into, and it was just so tough to get to work. And then I looked at Max Payne 1 and I think 2, and the way that they do navigation in that is they have manually placed points in all of the rooms that connect together and form nodes. And I was like, why don't I just do that? And I did it, and it worked immediately. And I was like, wow, this feels limiting.
Yes.
But because of what the game is trying to do and how it presents itself to the player,
it actually is the solution.
It is, and it makes it feel smarter. Like one of the other things that I like, this isn't necessarily a problem that I ran into, but I use a finite state machine, which is essentially like saying, enemies can only do one thing at one time, and they're not conscious necessarily of the next states that they're going to. It's very designed that they go to these states. But I have this aggression system, so like they're aggressive or they're defensive or they're just kind of normal. And because of that, it will randomize how they behave a little bit. And what I really love is that players will tell me like, yo, this feels like fear, this feels so unique. And I'm like, it's not, it's literally just randomness that I've introduced. Like there's just, I think the term's entropy, where it's just like, there's just a bit of chaos. And then that inevitably makes something emerge. And then people think that it's smarter than it is, and it's not at all.
Yeah, it's just natural, right? Like it gives the illusion of like a natural environment.
Illusion is perfect.
You live in chaos.
Yeah.
Right. It's
exactly.
All going back to the, I guess the gameplay loop. It does sound very action focused, and taking out people, building out your loadout. Are there any investigative elements to this game? Like, does it become eventually more of like a mystery solving kind of thing? Are there puzzles or anything, or does it strictly stay, kind of action centric?
So that's the thing that I want to stick with. I want to make sure that this game is very simple and straightforward because it's like making it seamless for the player. But there are things that you can do as the player playing the game where you can like basically take the narrative out of it and understand it. So a lot of the stuff is like I'm dropping hints here and there of just things that are like you don't have to pay attention to them at all. But there are narrative breadcrumbs that I drop that are like if you put those pieces together, you can piece together who this person is, why you might be doing this, where the story might be going, stuff like that. But I deliberately made it obtuse because in the protagonist's point of view, like the actual character, she really doesn't give a shit about this, and like it's kind of implied that she's just enjoying it and having fun, even though she's being held against her will. She's a very fucked up individual. So that's part of the fun there. And then because it's so simple and straightforward, there are going to be little rug pulls that I do later on to that kind of like introduce these like fun narrative elements where like, if you're in the kit van, for instance, getting your loadout and then you go to exit the door, but then suddenly the kit van is shot up and you fly off of the road, and then now you're in this interlude cutscene that you can walk through essentially, and you're like, that was unexpected and really interesting. So stuff like that, I want to introduce those things.
Have you watched the latest John Wick?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't.
When you watch it, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about, because talking about that, like the kind of turning the expectation of a scene or a narrative on its head. There's a particular scene that I think does that really well.
Yeah, that's cool.
But awesome. So what's the timeline for Pigface? Like when's the alpha going to be out? Demo? Like what's the development cycle looking like?
Yeah, we already have a demo out now, and early access is going to be like soon TM. It should be. I would say it should be like. It's going to be within this year. That's the safest option, is to say it's going to be in this year. And then for the total timeline, I think 1.0 will be probably about a year from now.
Sure.
And that's going to have, the story is going to be complete. There's going to be optional missions. All the equipment that I want to put in there is going to be in there. So you'll have all sorts of stuff to then solve these levels and figure these things out yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Ethan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about Pigface. It looks awesome. So thank you so much for taking the time, and have a great PAX.
Awesome. Thank you so much.